I kind of got into beekeeping a little bit by accident, or by luck, I guess you could say. I mean, 30 years ago when I first moved to the area, I joined the National Area Beekeepers Association, but I had no money and no place to have bees, and so it sort of petered out. Ironically, 30 some odd years later, I attended I saw something listed in the paper about beekeeping schools, so I signed up to go. And it's always been sort of an interest, and I got this incredible presentation of information and lots of pictures, both scientific, anecdotal, and whatever. Because the National Area Beekeepers is a pretty diverse group of folks. There are scientists, and there are fourth-generation beekeepers like the guy in the back of the room, and lots of old folks that have just been doing it for a long time. Anyway, that class sort of started, and I won a box of bees, you might say, which is a queen, and 10,000 bees. Okay, so I got into that. I used YouTube. I used everything that I could sort of find, because information is really kind of overwhelming. But what what ended up happening was, once you get in there and do it, make a couple of mistakes, like I did, you just learn that it really doesn't matter as long as they're healthy and happy, they have room and space, they'll do what they need to do. But I guess kind of what went on with me was I had a good place where we put them, and I had some good instruction. Did anybody hear that radio interview this morning, by any chance? Did you? One person? Good. But anyway, that was sort of fun to do. I've never done this before either, so excuse me. They're such simple insects, but they're so amazing. I gave you, there's a little handout here which you may have, or maybe you don't have, little fun facts for bees. And it talks about some of the amazing things that they do, and how they do it, and how they're so efficient at it. I was amazed going, I wish I didn't bring up flash drives, so the pictures that I have that I was going to substantiate some of what I'm talking about, I don't have, I can't show you, except unless we huddle around my computer and look at the screen. I guess what I want to do here tonight was sort of give you a little bit of information, provide some interaction with people who know bees and what I've learned, what I've done, to maybe get you interested. What I found most important to do was to go find some education, which is what I found at National Area Beekeepers Association. All the area has beekeeping associations. There's one in Columbia, there's one in Williamson County, and I think they meet out at the Ag Center, and there's one in Nashville that's active, and it's all around. There's one in Dixon, there's one in Portland, and I think there's one in Wilson County, I think, or Portland, I think, and they all meet regularly to talk about the problems and what's going, what's blooming, how to make it all better. That networking was very important, and I found a mentor who's sitting in the back, who actually lives a couple of miles from me. I don't live in Aqua now, although I lived in Franklin for 30 years, who makes this type of product, which is beehives and frames and things like that. I had first-hand look at how that all happened. You definitely get up close and personal with the bees, and then if it strikes you and you like like helping them out, it is a really interesting hobby. Some people make a life of it. Like Ed Johnson up in Villersville, he has many hives. He breeds queens, and it's different when it's a business. It was interesting to get into bees, because it's sort of a dance that you have to do with them. It's sort of like your girls, I went out there every day to go tend to them. First year, I guess, what I was told, this is not what you sort of read about at the beginning. They tell you you set them up in a home, and then you sort of watch them and help them. You give them a little bit of feed, and they will just do their own thing. I found it to be an awful lot of work to sort of keep up with them, and they responded to my attention. It was like every day I went out there to help to feed them sugar water. At the beginning, when a set of bees starts, they have to build their foundation. Everybody sees honeycomb. Everybody sees honeycomb, but the bees make that. They make the wax, and they form all these things. And what a beekeeper does in this type of beekeeping is you give them this as a foundation. And it's already got sort of pre-made hexes on it, but they take that and they build it out. And after they're done building it out and they have enough room, they start gathering pollen and nectar and water, and they pack it into these holes. And then because of microbes that are in their glands and in their mouth area, it starts the fermentation process. And it ferments, and then they let the water evaporate off, and then once it's perfect in terms of moisture level, they cap it, and you have honey, which is, it was just miraculous to sort of see. It's really very simple. A little bit of pollen, a little bit of nectar, a little bit of water, and a couple of germs, and it becomes honey. And it's not like the honey you get out of program. It's thick. It's not filtered, it's not pasteurized. It's made from all of the pollens in the area around you, which, allegedly, and I think it's true, local honey is good for you. It's good for your allergies because it sensitizes you or desensitizes you. That reminds me, I don't think I did that. Excuse me.
Where do they get the wax from?
Well, when the bees are first born and they hatch, those first couple of weeks, they have a role to fill. They have, just like they have a need to. Well, I think they're born with like wax legs. They have wax glands, and they have to make wax. And so, the first couple of weeks after they hatch, they help them to make the comb, and then there's another little bit of time when they go and help, and they feed the other bees. That's all outlined in this little handout, which talks about the whole life cycle of bees. It was, they're driven to do it, and you've got to give them a place to do it, or else you're going to have a problem. That's kind of why there's such a cycling of bees through the year. The colony starts out at 10, 12,000, which is what my package was. That's how I got it. Comes in a box, a caged box, with a can of sugar water in there. And whoever's breeding the bees, they shake a bunch of frames off and get the bees, and they've got some other queens that they sort of stick in. The queen, they get to know each other en route to wherever to whomever it's been sold. I lost my train of thought. But anyway, once they get started and the queen gets comfortable and starts laying eggs, she lays like about 200,000 eggs a year. It's between 1,500 to 2,500 eggs a day they can lay. The population of my hive grew from 10,000 to, I had really robust hives, and if I can't show you pictures, you won't even believe it. You're not going to believe it. But I think there were, in each of the hives, there were 70, 80,000 bees. They were productive, and it was amazing, because these organic guys, they want you to go in and work with them and clean them up and help them along and keep them sanitary, and it's a habit, and it's an exercise. It's kind of an ordeal at first until you get comfortable. Then you start enjoying it. It took me a while anyway. I think other people might do it a little bit quicker, but I was afraid of being stung, and I was reacting a lot to being stung, although it helped my arthritis. It seemed like a couple, 3 times a week was good. I felt good. I think that's ironic. But it's really quite amazing. As the queen starts laying, and you have to give them room, but those bees are born. They go through that whole insect stage, which is outlined here. I have some really great pictures for you that sort of show that graphically. Beautiful cross sections of a hive. They have their place and their time. It was really pretty magic how it is. Of course, I guess that's why they've been around for thousands and thousands of years. You know, they've got it down. You just try to harness their work, because they do work themselves to death. And they're all females too. I mean, not all females work themselves to death for the good of the family. That's what they do.
You know how many you have? Obviously, you don't count them. You just kind of know.
Yeah, I think isn't there a gauge for how many are on a frame when it's really full? And isn't it like 12 to 15,000 per box? And I had 5 boxes that were just full. I would at the peak, you would take the top off, and here you go in and you inspect each of those frames, and they would be. I don't know. You should see the pictures. They'd be the whole top of these bars. This is what these look like. Okay, but the whole top of this would be totally filled with bees, and you pull each one of these frames up, and they were totally packed with bees. You put this down to the side while you work the next one, they would ooze out and flow over. I mean, it was astounding. They'd beard over. I mean, just because they were so full, and like they were exposed to a little bit of light and air. It was whoa! Look at that. It was astounding. And they were doing well. They were happy. They were disease free, which is, you know, at least I was told they were disease free.
So how do you get them back in?
Slap them. No, actually, there were times. What you do is you really don't have to get back in. They'll go back in. But when you go to put the box back on top, you sort of you jiggle it down gently, and then you sort of slowly bump it down. And as they feel pressure from above, they'll move out of the way most of the time. And then what was really cool was actually it's not cool, but I was amazed at the concern of the bees. Okay, if you squash one, or if something's accidentally killed somewhere, all the ones adjacent to it run to it to check it out to see what's happening. If you squash them on the boxes and you put them together, and you always do, they fly around and then they come out and check out what's going on and see if they can help to extract. I suspect to extract it, to pull it out, do whatever they could do. I mean, they were so attuned to each other, which really leads you to talking about some of them, how they communicate, or leads me, I guess. Aside from them from being having in their genes how to do things, they communicate in different ways. That was some of the books I read talked about that a little bit. You know, everybody's heard about the bee dance. That's a really cool thing that bees do. And this is part of communication. You know, there's a lot of pheromone communication that happens. There's vibration, there's the touch, and there's sounds that they make to each other, all of which in different situations. And this is the whole communication system. But the bee dance, you know, their prime directive is to keep the place alive, to keep going to find nectar and honey, and nectar and pollen and water. And scout bees go off, the older females. After they get past their nurse-maid time and their wax-making time, they become guard bees for a little while, and they go off and forage and hunt for that. That's their main thing. And the fun facts about bees is a little bit of talk about how many trips these guys make and what they carry back and what they can carry back. They carry back almost 3/4 of their body weight, and they can travel 8 miles an hour doing it, between 5 and 8 miles an hour with a full load. Astounding. And but anyway, in the course of those ladies foraging for the hive, for the good of the hive, they find a place, and they come back to the hive, and they communicate with all the other bees to tell them where the flowers are, where the water is, and how good it is. And they do this with a certain type of a waggle dance. And scientists have studied it, and everybody has seen it a little bit, but like scientists have analyzed it. And they go off, they find out how far it is, in what direction as you come out of the hive, and how good it is. And they'll come back, and in the way that they dance in the hive, they will communicate to the other bees this, and the other guys will take off. The other girls will take off and go get it. And you never know where they're doing it, because as you look at the front of the hive, there's lots going in and out, especially in the middle of the summer when the flow, as the bee guys call it. They respond a lot to what's available. When it's cooking, they'll get cooking. Amazing to see how busy they are. Busy as a bee is not without meaning.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, you're not.
We
Thanks.
came a little bit late, so I'm thinking that we may miss something. I'm a little bit lost. I guess can you explain? Now you're going talking about a hive and where more or less you see them, some of their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose you want to start, let's call it a farm of them. How would you approach that? Do you catch a male and female bee? Is there such a thing? How do they grow? What kind of family do they have? So if you can go through that, I'm interested in how they live.
John can probably speak to that a little bit more, but to do a farm, you mean like lots of hives?
Well, let's say you start with that. You start.
Right.
Is it possible to create your own honey and put it in a bottle?
Absolutely. Well, that's what I did last year. My first year with 2 hives, I got. I took 125 pounds for myself. I had some great pictures of the extraction process. Okay. But I had another 100 too. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the library can help you with that if you want to.
They can't. I need to have a flash drive. I thought I could bring my laptop and do it, and I didn't bring a flash drive. I spent a lot of time putting that together too.
Sorry, yeah, I brought the little boy here. He wanted to see.
I'll show you. I'll show you on my laptop. But I'm really glad to share those because some of those are really spectacular. I think anyway.
Does everybody buy a box to start, or do they sometimes just put out the hive and let her rip?
You've got to have a queen for something to happen. Okay, and then you can buy that package of bees, like I said, which is about 10 or 12, 3 pounds of bees and a queen, and that's what you can use to start.
How much does that cost to do something like that?
I don't know, so $250 to $300. Is that about right for a beginning setup and a package of bees?
That's the equipment and the bees are 2 separate different things.
Yeah, I was trying to.
It depends. There's a lot of different variations on how you can set up and different things. There's different grades of equipment. This is a #1 setup pretty much right here.
Which means clear.
Yeah, clear, no knots. You can go cheaper, you can go more expensive. It just depends on how you want to set up, really.
But the beginning of what you need was like $250 just for like 3 boxes
Give or
and some
take.
frames.
You
Okay.
can get cheaper than that.
And they're about $81 for 3 pounds of bees.
Right.
Comes with a laying queen, and all you have to do is install them, and they take off.
Yeah.
And they just know what to do.
They know what to do. You've got help along with a little bit of sugar
You
water
have
and
to feed
feed
them
them.
up.
Do you just pour it in there?
Yeah, there's a process to it, but yes, there are some feeders, some ways to do it.
This is a feeder here.
What you do is, this would be on top of, say, if you started with like a package, you'd have 1 box. And you put your feeder on there,
It goes like that.
and then you've got a cover on it. Okay? That would get you started. But
That's right.
soon you will need 2 more. And you get in there, you just take the cover off and fill up the feeder every night with more water. My hives, when they were going, were going through 2-3 quarts of sugar water a day. Now, I ended up buying a barrel of sugar.
And these, this particular type of feeder, the bees are totally encased, so you don't have to get all suited up.
That's right.
That's something we encourage you to do, is get you a bee veil, get comfortable working your bees. Get you a pair of gloves, get comfortable with working bees. I don't wear gloves now. I encourage you to wear a bee veil because your eyes. Because if you're wearing glasses, they can fly by and hit that glass and curl, and of course, the automatic response is they're going to curl and pop you. And your eyes are too valuable to lose.
One night when I was out feeding them, I'd go out there at the end of the day to do it when it's dark. They never usually bothered me. They didn't even notice I'm there. Okay? But one night I did something funny, or I swatted at one, They got me 4 times right here.
And so
They
they
give me
don't
a
bite
vet.
your hands, or you just don't feel it anymore?
They don't. And the only
I mean,
time,
sting.
if they feel threatened, then they will protect themselves. You know, as long as I'm not mashing it, it doesn't release a pheromone.
Mm-hmm.
It's alarm pheromone. Banana oil or bananas. If you eat bananas, don't go to a bee yard because they will jump on you because it's the same smell as the alarm pheromone. And so,
And they will nail you. but really, you've heard of smokers, smoking the bees to make them quiet. It doesn't really make them quiet, but it hides any alarm pheromones. That's one of the ways they communicate. You whack somebody or hurt it, they emit the smell, and then everybody picks it up around it, and they want to attack and defend. Okay, that's one quick way that they communicate. It's almost as quick as sight. It's astounding. But one of the ways that the beekeepers don't have to wear gloves is they smoke their hands well. Okay, and that's going to overwhelm a pheromone, any type of alarm pheromones that are put on. And it works pretty well, not completely well, but you know, if you're doing, depends how far, what you're doing in the hive, you'll get nailed a little bit. Most of the time, Trevor was this fellow Trevor. This is Trevor Qualls, and he has an apiary business, and he builds this stuff. So he's a supplier and used to sell bees. Still does, I think.
No.
Not much. But he's the one who helped me and taught me so much. You know, he'd come and help me every couple of weeks. I didn't make a lot of mistakes because of that. I let him do the work and show me.
How much time per day do you have to spend with your bees, taking care of them?
You know, if you include mixing the sugar water, and I wasn't doing it, you can do it in big batches. You know, the more bees you get, the more efficient you get about everything. You know, if you're in the kitchen, I probably average an hour a day. All right, might be a little bit more because if you take into account working with him on the weekends, and I'm really slow. I mean, he's slow, but I'm really slow. I mean, every time I went in to do something in one hive, it'd take you 2 hours. Okay, just working in, and then you have to get ready to go in. Never mind the feeding and all the other nighttime stuff. And that was each hive, and so I was really slow. But there was so much to look at. It was
A lot
complicated.
depends on too, if you're, like Rick's saying, the bigger the batches you make, and then if you're gonna feed them say it's nothing for a hive of bees, that pan in this feeder holds almost a gallon of sugar syrup a day. They can dry it in a day's time.
They can.
And so,
Each hive.
so then, if you know you've got a couple of hives and you're gonna be feeding a gallon a day, the best thing that you can do is make up larger batches. You can go to Publix, you can go to any grocery store that's got a bakery that they have icing that they're going to be putting on cakes. You can get their little 3-gallon icing buckets, and that's how I generally make it up. Is take and put mix up my sugar water in those, and then when I go out to feed, I've either got like an iced tea pitcher or something. I'll pour a little bit in to pour it off into it, or something like that, to where I don't have to make it up every day. So if you can make it in larger batches, you're going to save yourself time.
And that's just one place where it gets more efficient. The more you have, you get better at everything that you're doing. Like I said, since I was small, I was doing it in my kitchen. It takes a while. I'll be faster this year. I guarantee, all the way around. I guarantee it. Plus, I'm adding 1 hive this year. I'm not trying to start a farm, and I got away from your question a little bit. But really, you with just 1 or 2 hives, you can get started. Once you get used to it, you can multiply your hives very quickly. If you have strong colonies, the next year you can buy a queen and you can take some of the bees off and just sort of split your hive. You can probably get 2 or 3 hives, 2 or 3 new hives out of a strong colony. Is that right? If that's what you want to do, you can split them yourself. You can force a swarm.
Well, that's okay. Is it better in the warm days? Do they escape from there? If you open it, do they go by themselves out? Do you have to?
No, not as long as the queen's in there. The smell of the queen is what keeps that family in line.
but they do fly out every day
Yep.
Okay.
to go and gather nectar. and your workforce goes out and between 10 and 2, the majority of your bees will be out of the hive between the hours of 10 and 2. So if you're a newbie, that's the best time to be into your hive. It's between 10 and 2. There's less bees for you to deal with.
And it's really dramatically different.
What other requirements do you have? Can you do this in your backyard house then? I mean, if you have animals, other?
They won't. They'll teach the animals to stay off their back.
I've got a
I'm
little
amazed.
terrier, he don't go nowhere near.
The thing, if you start with, say you live in a subdivision,
Do you live in
No,
town?
I live nearby here. It's not a subdivision. It's just, you know, I got about an acre in the back, but I have a garage in the back to take some of that. But yeah,
okay, but
I
it,
have a cat, so he's always into something.
well, the cats will stay away. It doesn't take them long to figure out that's not a place they want to be. And if you do live in a situation where you have neighbors nearby, it's best to place your hive facing a bush or a wall so that when the bees come up out of the hive, they immediately climb. And they cruise about 10 to 11 feet, somewhere thereabouts. And so that way they're above human traffic. They won't be bumping into your neighbors. One thing you might consider, if your neighbors have a swimming pool, supply water for your bees. They need water. They can use as much as a quart a day in the heat of the summer. And so if your neighbors have a swimming pool, a lot of people are changing over to from a chlorine-based solution to saltwater purification system. Bees are like any other creature on earth. They like salt. So if you take and put out in front of the hive, close to them, a kiddie pool with a piece of screen wire draping down into the center and get you a salt block, set in there and fill it full of water, they will go down and get their water, the salty water there. And your neighbors won't be bothered with the bees going to them.
And what's really important about getting bee starters is to have a good place to get a good setting. Okay, that's really critical. I had a great setting because of what I was told by bee starters. They said, pick a place for your hive if you're going to do this. Pick a place for your hive where it gets early morning sun. Just afternoon, right after the sun comes up, you should be hitting the hive to wake them up, to get them out, to get moving, to go to work. And be in the sun all day until late afternoon. Late in the afternoon, like 2, 3 o'clock, then it should be in the shade. That's the ideal time. Because the hive gets hot. The more bees, as the bees are coming back in and the sun's on it, it gets too hot for them, and it's good for them to cool down. And to be near a water source, to be within a quarter mile, is it, of a stream, would be ideal, or a pool. Huh?
Closer the better.
Yeah, right. Just as long as it doesn't get flooded. I had a really good setting for mine because I had a creek, got a good sized creek just 50 yards away, you know, and perfect setting on one side on the west side of the field.
So were you able to relocate your bees to your new place?
I didn't have them before then. I left Franklin a few years ago.
But you can move them, or you don't move them once you have them
You can,
established?
but there is some tricks to it and some rules.
You have to, in the state of Tennessee, you have to have the bees inspected before you can move them. Because of, like in our county, we have fire ants. And I'm pretty sure what parts of Williamson County has them too. And, but anyway, they don't, what the state doesn't want is for you to pick up your bees that's got fire ants or some other kind of pest and move them to an area that they don't have them and now they've got. That's
when you're going to a different town, I mean, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, when you go to go into beekeeping, Tennessee state law says that you're required to register your beehives with the state. It's not a big deal.
No,
It's just as easy as filling out a piece of paper. They just want to know, and there's benefits to doing that because they want to know where these beekeepers are. There are some diseases that are out there for bees.
That are bad, too.
That are bad. American foul brood, different things like that. We're not going to go into that because I don't want to bog you down with too much. But the thing about it is what that does is that lets the state know, and if there's an outbreak in your area, they will call it. And they come out and inspect your bees for that disease or whatever the case might be to make sure that your bees don't have it. Or to tell you maybe you need to screen them there might be some spraying or something going on that you may need to straighten up.
And so if you went on vacation or whatever, I'm sorry, and somebody has to do the sugar water, or they can go a day or two without it, or?
Oh, yeah.
They can go a day or two without it, but ideally, the first year you're trying to draw out wax. It takes 8 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax. And so the first year you're trying to get 3 boxes. In the state of Tennessee, it's recommended that if you use mediums, and this is what is called a medium.
They're different heights.
They're different heights. And the nice thing about using mediums versus using the old standard is deeps. In other words, it's 9 and 5/8, and this is 6 and 5/8. So it's a whole lot lighter on it. If you notice, there's only 8 frames in these hives. Well, the standard in the state of Tennessee at this time is 10 frames. But bees naturally do not draw out 10 frames of wax. In my granddaddy's day, they had 12 frames. His hives were 12 frames. And they were jumbo deeps, 14 inches.
And they were full of honey. How much did they weigh?
145, somewhere thereabouts.
And you've got, sometimes they're up here, you've got to listen like this.
So I encourage you
Believe me.
to think about it, because you're getting older. From this day point forward, you're going to get older. So the 8 frame makes the most sense, because it's naturally what the bees want to draw. They want to draw 8 frames, and about 18 inches up is the brood chamber. And so by using 3 mediums,
the baby bees. Right.
yeah. So by using 3 mediums, you'll house your bees, and that's very important the first year. Make sure you get these 3 boxes drawn out. And what I mean by drawn out, the foundation, you get it to, you put your foundation in, and it has cells. This one right here. Right there. And Trevor's going to pass it around and let you see what the drawn foundation looks like.
This is what you're starting with, this is what you'll come up, this is what the bees draw. In other words, this would have been cut out of the frame.
And it's very important. So you can go a couple of days, go on vacation, what have you. But if you're going to be gone longer than 2 weeks, then I would have somebody come by and feed your bees for you. And it's very simple. You always approach your hive from the back. Never go in front of the hive, because these girls are loaded, heavy, trying to come in, and here I am in front. No, don't do that. Stand to the side. If you want to look at your bees, stand to the side and watch them. And you'll see a variety of pollen that they bring in. As the season progresses, one of the first colors they bring in is red, in this area of Tennessee. And it's from the red maples.
That starts in February, doesn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful color. And then you'll see a little bit of yellow in there, dandelions. They get a little off of dandelions, and then they get some bee nettle. So they start out early, about mid-February, really beginning to want to build a colony. And back to your question about a package, you get a package of bees, 3 pounds of bees with a queen, a laying queen. And then you start out, like Rick said, with 1 box in the bottom. And when you do that, you want to use a screen bottom board, because the reason what we do, we take and work bees naturally, like they are in the wild. So we try to mimic nature. By the use of a screen bottom board, it allows all the debris to fall down and underneath the hive and out. And if you use a solid bottom board, all that debris falls right on the floor, the bees track into it. If you go into a hive that's been overwintered early spring, you'll find a lot of debris. Whereas if you use a screen bottom board, all that debris falls down, just like it does in nature. They build up, and all the debris falls down. But when you first get your bees, you want to make sure that closure is in there, and close it off, because they want to feel secure. They want to draw it out in darkness. And you want your hive level from side to side. Tilting it forward is not really a big deal, but you need to have your hive level, because what they're going to do, they're going to draw that cone perfectly parallel. You can go in there and jack that hive up on one side, they'll rework that cone to make it straight up and down. And they do it in the dark. These little girls are fantastic. Like Rick said, the more you know about them, the less you know. It's truly amazing creatures.
I'm sorry, I have to ask this question. 2 questions actually. Bees, they go through life also, so they are little, they're children bees, and then they're older bees. What do you do, according to what he wants to know, about the bad bees that they won't behave? What do you do with them? How do you manage them?
Well, if I have a colony that's real aggressive, I look for a reason. We have some bees in one yard that always been real gentle. And one day I was over there looking at them, wiping eye, and man, they set us afire. We had to leave because you know, we don't wear gloves or anything, and so that was out of character. So there was something wrong. A couple of days later, I was by that hive, and I noticed there's a lizard. He was waiting on the side, and every time a bee would land, he'd run around there and get him a lunch. Skunks do the same thing. They can upset a hive. There's a bug, a small hive beetle, and it's one of the curses we got from world trade. Came from South Africa. And if you have too many of them in a hive, they can make a nice, non-aggressive hive very aggressive. So there's reasons for that. And if you've got an old queen, then you just take and mash her, and in 6 to 8 weeks, you'll have you put a new queen in, and then in 6 to 8 weeks, every bee in there will be back to gentle. So bees aren't they don't go around looking to to sting you or anything. But they
just want to make honey.
They just want to make honey. That's what they're programmed for. They go out and gather nectar. They won't even touch honey if there's nectar available because they're programmed to gather nectar. And then they go to honey if there's no nectar available, and then sugar last. You can have 3 bowls out there. They won't even touch that sugar. Won't even touch the honey. They go to nectar. That's what their little brains are programmed for. And it's a fascinating hobby. And I must warn you, it's contagious. If you start out with one, you know, oh man, that's pretty, like Rick.
Sounds like kids.
Yeah, and Rick started out with a couple last year. And this year he's getting another one. And then, you know, you never know where it's going to end. And it's a fascinating hobby.
So, do you winterize these bees? Is there a winterization to them, or?
Well, you want to.
I mean, they're not in a way collecting pollen in the wintertime. So what do they?
What they do, they store up in the fall. Say by mid-October, these 3 boxes are full. It should weigh roughly about 60 pounds. And so,
what happens is like the bees start to die off. And the queen knows that winter's coming, and she stops laying as much. Until during the winter, it's very, very few even during the winter.
Just enough in the cluster to keep her at 92, 93 degrees.
Because what they do is they cluster. I mean, they pack the honey all around them, so they've got food to eat. It's like a pantry for them. But then during the winter, they bunch together and they keep the queen warm. That's what it's all about. And I think they keep it about 90-something degrees, 94.5, 92? Something in the low mid-90s.
They do that themselves, or you put a light on it?
No, they don't. They do it themselves. They huddle together and they shiver to create warmth.
You don't want to
flex their little wing
They
muscles.
flex their muscles.
And it generates heat.
And as they get too warm, they move to the outside and cool off. And the ones on the outside are burrowing in. So it's an alive survival technique.
So there's nothing that you got to do to prepare these.
Other than to make sure that they have enough honey. Okay.
Oh, you don't rob the.
No, you don't take the late fall honey. You don't take.
Okay.
You know, that's
What happened to me, like last year, which was sort of interesting, which I found to be interesting. I had really prolific girls. Okay. Then one of them didn't slow down well enough, good enough before winter was coming on, and they didn't have enough honey stored up. And I ended up taking some of the other honey that I had taken off. I put back on for them. You know, and I gave them enough for the winter, and then choose. Okay. They seem okay.
You've always heard beekeepers, they always talk about robbing a hive, right? Okay. You got 3 boxes like John's saying. This right here is pretty much their honey.
2 feet.
This is surplus honey. We're collecting rent. If you take out of this, that's wrong.
It really is.
And that's what it boils down to. You're taking something that belongs to them.
And so we provide them a home, so we get this box in return for the rent.
You know, what's interesting, I think honey is the only naturally preserved food that there is. It doesn't mold, mildew, go bad. It just stays. Once it's fermented, it's capped, it's ready, and it stays the way it is. It's kind of antifungal, antibacterial. The bees are very clean and hygienic. And he raises bees, and he raises for that hygienic quality, where they keep their nests clean and kick out the dead bees and all the good things, you know.
How low can the temperatures go if they still survive?
Well, they have bees up in Minnesota, north in Canada, Vermont, Montana. Up there they help a little more. I think some of them insulate a little, you know, around the perimeter of the boxes. But
a lot of people will ask the question, well, how, you know, we talked just a minute ago about running screen bottom boards. Right now on beehives that have been established, they look like that right now. It's not the cold that kills bees, it's the moisture. And that's the reason why we run screen bottom boards like that in the state of Tennessee, is because bees create heat, right? They shiver their wing muscles when they're clustered together tight. It's kind of like you rubbing your hands together. So what happens is when you've got a lid on a box or an inner cover, with that moisture rising to the top and the outside temperature is being cold, what happens?
Condensation.
Condensates moisture and then drips back down. That's where this comes in. You've got airflow through the hive. And so that keeps the moisture cut out of them.
And they're in a cluster, in a bell-shaped cluster, so they're keeping warm on their own. As long as they don't get wet, they're not going to get chilled and freeze, you might say.
So what's the life cycle of bees?
30 to 40 days.
I mean, like if you keep them over winter, then they can continue the next summer?
Yeah.
How
Actually,
many years can they do that?
Forever, because there's going to be a constant regurgitation. You know, they're going to die and be reborn, be replenished, as long as the queen is good. And then the hive has its own mechanisms built in case the queen gets weak or too old to function. You know,
And then you requeen.
They'll raise a new and get rid of the old.
You have to purchase the queen?
You don't have to, but that's probably the easy way to do it.
That way you keep new genetics coming in.
Yeah, that's the important thing in bees.
You got one back
New blood.
Yes, sir.
Can you raise them on a carport or in a shed maybe for protection?
Well, they really don't need protection.
Just that cover.
Yeah, just the outer cover here. You put them underneath a carport, you give them a sense of falseness because they're not getting rained on. They're not going to go out and fly. So if they take and say, oh, okay, the landing board's good and dry, and they take off, all of a sudden they got hit by a raindrop and down they go. And so it's best not to do that. Now, if you're overwintering them in a real harsh environment like up north or over in Switzerland, they do have honey bee houses that they put them in, but they still have access. The front of the hive is access to the outside. But it's best not to put them on a carport or something like that. It's best to have them out in the open.
Sunlight.
And you need to have them in the sunlight.
Not shady. That's the word. Having them in shade, like in a grove of trees, or on the edge of a grove of trees, way in the shade, is asking for some of the pest problems that bees have, and it can exacerbate it a whole lot.
The little black bugs in a bottle that got passed around, those are hive beetles. They need about a 4 to 5% moisture content in the soil to be able to bore into the soil and pupate. That's the reason why it's important to put your hives in the sun, not in the shade.
And a decently drained ground.
Because it's naturally, if you're in a shady area, what's going to happen to the moisture content of the soil? It's going to go up. So that's another reason why.
So what about if you're in an area where you got like a heavy clay soil? Do you recommend digging out from underneath your hive and like going in, supplementing with sand or gravel to keep the moisture down?
Clay would be sufficient. The main thing is have your hive up off the ground to allow airflow. I don't recommend concrete blocks because of two things. One, using a screen bottom board, the mites, there's a mite. All of our problems are from overseas. We never had tracheal mites or varroa mites or small hive beetles until we got involved in the world trade, and that started in about '94. And so as a result, we have to change things a little bit differently than what we used to. You said on a concrete block and you'd be all right. But by using a screen bottom board and having some clearance underneath there, at least 3-4 inches, it allows, if the mites are on there and the bees groom themselves, or if you use a powdered sugar dusting, a lot of people take a cup of powdered sugar per box and start at the bottom and just pour it over the top of the bees and brush it over into the, off the frames over on top of the bees. And it will cause the bees to start grooming themselves, and the mites will loosen their foothold and they will fall off. And if you have it less than 3 inches underneath your hive, they're going to crawl back up and get back in the hive. And so
I put mine about 16 inches up off the ground, and I had good success with none of those bug problems.
What do you put on?
I built a couple little, I put 4x4s with 2 to 6 across in the front and in the back. And it's just up off. The only thing that touches the hives is the 1.5 inch of the 2 to 6.
And then that's what's on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah. This goes right on here, you know. I guess it's like that. It's like that. Then everything sits on top of it. You can remove it, get to it, clean it out.
Okay, so the air doesn't, I mean,
Yep.
there's a solid underneath there.
No, it's open.
It's open.
Oh, okay, I'm seeing the
Okay.
tray.
Yeah,
the
the trays for
tray
something else.
is something else.
So does the honey taste different based on the different nectar? You're saying the red in the beginning, then is the honey, do you taste a difference?
In our area, anybody ever tried kudzu honey? Kudzu, if you ever smell the blossom, it has a grapey smell. The honey will be a grayish, bluish, cloudy looking, milky looking color, but it'll have a grapey taste. Locust honey, which is a really nice honey, it will have the taste of the smell of the locust blossom. Williamson County have quite a few locust trees, and it makes a fine honey. Also, tulip poplar is our largest source of honey in the state of Tennessee. One tulip blossom, or yellow poplar, will produce over a teaspoonful of honey, or nectar rather. And so it's our largest source. And then blackberry. And so each one of them has their own distinctive taste. Over in our end of the county, we have a lot of sourwood. So sourwood makes a real nice premium honey. It brings a premium price. And the thing about extracting your honey, if you'll take one super at a time and extract it and put it in, like Trevor said, a 3-gallon bucket, that honey will be different than, say, your next super of honey, because it basically came from a certain source of flowers.
All depends what's flowering at the time. Things are flowering all the way through into like November around here.
And so if you
They're getting pollen from it.
So if you take 3 or 4 of these supers and extract it all at once, you're actually getting a blend of honey. Whereas you extracted it just one super at a time, you get a premium tasting honey, and you can get more for it if you decide to sell it. So it brings more. It's a premium honey. And people will aggravate the fire out of you to get your honey. Isn't that right, Trevor?
Yeah.
And the thing about, yes, sir.
If bees start becoming active in February, what time can you get the honey and start using it for yourself?
Well, it'll be toward the around last of May, June, and so it's really the first year get these boxes out. You have to live in a microclimate. Rick lives in a microclimate, and he was very diligent. I mean, Trevor told him, "Hey, you need to do this." Rick was out there doing it because he went right at the window, right at the opportune time. If you wait, I'll get to it tomorrow, and next thing you know, you're 3-4 days down the road. You missed that window. And the reason Rick was able to produce the amount of honey he did was because he paid attention to Trevor and did it exactly when he was supposed to. I can say that for Rick. He did real well We're real proud of him.
Nobody ever gets honey the first year. And
It's extremely hard to get honey.
nothing's never good. But still.
One thing is in beekeeping, beekeepers in general have, beekeeping was the last agribusiness to go chemical, and start using chemicals inside the beehive, and there are certain ones. But one of the biggest things that John and I, we do a lot of meetings around several different states, and the thing that I can tell you is you've got to learn, if you get into this, to work with your bees, not to work against them. And one of the things that I'm talking about is just like in feeding your bees. A lot of suppliers will sell you a broadband feed. It is cheaper way to go. But bees, naturally, where's the honey stored? This is their brood chamber. Here's the honey. So naturally, bees store honey up. So they're going to feed from the top down. So which one makes more sense? Top feeder or here? So that's what we're talking about. Another thing is the frame that's passed around. Frames, the cells on a frame are put in on a 4 to 5 degree angle.
This is interesting.
Like this.
That's the way the bees make it.
And the reason for that is why? Don't want the honey to run out, right? Okay, so the angle is put in on a 4 or 5 degree angle. This is a tool for beekeepers. We call this a bee brush. And 95% of the time we call it a bee agitator because that's what it does. And they'll use this to brush off a frame so that you can inspect it closer, or maybe if you're going to extract honey, you'll take and brush the bees off of it onto the front of the hive and let them crawl right back into the hives, and then take this off to extract your honey. Well, this agitates the bees, it makes them mad. Or is it that we're not working with nature? It's just because most beekeepers don't know how to use this tool properly. 4 to 5 degree angle, the bee's got her head stuck off in the cell, packing nectar or pollen or whatever the case may be, and we're brushing them off. What's happening? We're breaking their back, right? Somebody tried to break my back, I'd be mad too. So if you flip that frame over, now your cells are on a 4 to 5 degree angle this way. Now if we brush this way, what's happening? We're just pulling them right out of the cell. So that's the big thing in working with nature, is what we're talking about. And what John was talking about earlier, about most of the standard beekeeping equipment is 10 frame deeps in this area. Not only, like John said, are you getting older, but you'll find out that if you read about beekeeping, most of your older beekeeping books will tell you to take 10 frame equipment. You'd have 10 frames, they tell you to take number 1 frame and number 10 out and put followable 10. So what have we done when we do that? We take 2 frames from 10, what do you got? 8, right? So why? There's got to be a reason why they don't want to pull those outside frames. It's because it's out of the natural realm of what they want to do. So why not start out, give your bees what they want? And here's another thing. We talked a little bit about pests. Pests inside a beehive are not going to be inside the cluster because the bees will push them around like cattle, especially hive bees. And if they're not going to be in the cluster with the bees, and you're running 10 frame equipment, and those outside frames aren't going to be drawn, right? Which common sense tells you what? There's no bees out there. So where are the pests going to be? So by condensing that hive and making it tighter, see, where you make it a little bit more pest effective too, in that way. Any other questions?
Yeah, part of what he's speaking to is, John, well, actually, not really jokingly, refer him to him as the local bee whisperer in Tennessee, okay? Which is sort of funny, but he's a 4th generation beekeeper, okay? His daddy's granddaddy and his great granddaddy did it, okay? He used to do it the old way, the old-fashioned way, or the traditional way that he's speaking about, the larger boxes and the larger bees. Because of all the diseases, and because of his reading, he has come to the conclusion that the bees that he's now breeding are smaller, okay, and they work better in these eight-frame arrangements. Back in the late 1800s, bees started being bred for production, just like everything else, like in society. Things were standardized, and they wanted to get more. They thought a bigger bee, more honey, okay? And they got larger. And John's opinion, and I sort of jumped onto that bandwagon, is that has a lot to do with why there's so many diseases and problems with bees right now. As you get larger, you have problems. As humans, you get more arthritis, you get heart disease, you get cholesterol issues, you get all sorts of stuff that goes on as you get larger and fatter. Same thing with bees. They had larger anatomical structures. Different types of mites were able to attack and attack them like in their anatomy, trachea, and he discovered this and started experimenting with the bees and these bees that he breeds, and he sells packages. Okay, Trevor builds the wood stuff and sells the bees from his bee yards in Georgia. And they, because of their naturally, they're a little bit more like the way they used to be, like in the old days and through time. They're smaller. They're not attacked by the same types of problems, and they're cleaner. You get more bees per square inch than bigger bees, and they make just as much or more honey. And maybe they're more industrious, according to him. But,
and what Rick's saying is more bees per frame. Each frame that's in a hive, it's got more cells on it. You have more workers per hive. You're going to have more bees per hive. And it's just like anything else. If you're building a house, the more workers you got on that project, the quicker it gets done.
With good management.
And the thing about it is just the same thing. You get more honey production quicker, more bees that you have. If I had a choice between having 2 colonies with 30,000 bees in each or 1 colony with 60,000, I'll choose the one because it'll outproduce both. That's just the way it works.
And that going back to the mediums, if you use one size box and one size frame, you can go to any of your yards and you'll have everything you need. Whereas if you use the so-called standard, and it's changing, it really is. This soon will become the standard right here, the 8-frame mediums. Every year goes by, we see more and more beekeepers switching to that. A few years ago, talked to the clubs about using screen bottom board. They thought we were absolutely crazy.
Tradition had solid ones.
Used to have solid bottom boards. But they found, hey, it works. And now, TBA, Tennessee Beekeepers Association, when they give away their hives, they give away hives with screen bottom boards because it does work. You're going to find a lot of research that will say, hey, that doesn't work. Same way with screen bottom boards. They had the research saying, couldn't tell no difference. Well, they were correct. In the way in which the studies were done, they couldn't tell any difference. It goes back to the same old thing. Years ago, they say cigarette smoking didn't affect you, wouldn't hurt you. Had university studies on it. And the studies were correct in the way in which they were done. So you have to look at things just because they say, well, it doesn't work. Well, you need to question where did they get their funding from? How was the study done? And how long the study was done. And where was the study done? Down in Florida, they do beekeeping altogether different than we do here in Tennessee. So a screen bottom board wouldn't really work down there. Why? Because they set their hives on the ground, flat on the ground, because of the sandy soil. Water and moisture is not a problem. It drains right on through. So if you see a study from a certain part of the country, look at it, and then evaluate it. We have found that the smaller universities, West Virginia University has a great research program concerning bees. One of the handouts here on organic treatments, it has their website. You can go to their website, Google around, and find out a lot of information about bees. And so I encourage you to think about it. use one size frame, because what they're going to try to get you to do is use a deep and then use a shallow. So you got 2 frames and 2 size boxes. This is a shallow frame. See the difference? Whereas if you use one box and one set of frames, that's all you have to have. And it's cheaper, believe it or not. Yes, ma'am.
What if you ask the bees to stick, will it die? Or if the bee stings you, will it die automatically?
If a bee stings you, will it die?
Yes. The only bee that can sting you multiple times is a queen bee. And the reason why the bee will die when it stings you, it has a barbed stinger. So it stings you, it stays in. The queen has a smooth stinger with no barbs on it. So she can repetitively sting you. With a sting, you never want to try, when that bee flies off, it's going to leave its stinger in a little sac. Do not pull it out with your fingers. Because when you pull it out with your fingers, you're going to mass that sac. Take your fingernail and scrape it, and it'll remove it. There's a plant here in the state of Tennessee, in this part of the area, it's called plantain. It's a plant that you can use for first aid treatment on bees. So you just take in some of the leaves, crush them, and rub it on the bee sting, and you'll be surprised. It'll quit hurting, and you won't, as a rule, go into anaphylactic shock. And if you are allergic to bees, well, how come? Well, there's something wrong, or not necessarily wrong with you, but something you might want to consider doing. I used to have to take cortisone shots because I was extremely allergic. My wife did some research and found that I needed to have a natural liver cleanse, because apparently I'd picked up enough toxic over the years. I had a liver that wasn't really functioning properly, because your liver takes out toxins. And so I took a natural liver cleanse, and from then on I haven't had any trouble. Some people are allergic, highly allergic, that they have to take and carry an EpiPen. But try that liver cleanse first and see if that doesn't help you. You can go online and Google it. It's a natural liver cleanse, and it's quite effective.
As you can see, he has a naturalistic bent to him, and that's the way he teaches taking care of the bees. It's all done with like essential oils, and that's when I was feeding them all sugar water. It was with a little bit of lemongrass oil in a mix, and with tea tree oil, all of which is it does a couple of different things for the bees. But in the long run, it's excellent. That's actually good.
That lemongrass oil, what it will do, bees really don't like sugar. It's just really not their thing, but they will take it if there's no nectar available. So by mixing a little bit of lemongrass oil into the sugar water, it gives them a flower taste, a bouquet of a flower. So they will suck it down like it's no tomorrow. They will really jump on it.
And it gives them the carbohydrates to build more foundation, more wax.
And the lemongrass oil is antibacterial. So it has a lot of benefits for it. If they were in Southeast Asia, Indonesia rather, they would be working these flowers, like the lemongrass. If they were in Australia, they would be working the tea tree oil, the tea tree. That honey that comes off of that is the only honey that the USDA has certified to use on burn victims and diabetic sores. It is that good. It's really high in hydrogen peroxide. So when you buy your honey, I'm not saying Walmart doesn't have good honey, don't get me wrong, but go to a local beekeeper, because 9 times out of 10 he does not heat treat it and he doesn't microfilter it, because you want that propolis, you want the pollen that's in it, and honey never goes bad, like Rick said. There's honey been dug up that's over 4,000 years old, and they just take and put it in a pan and put in another double boiler, I think you call it, and let the water warm them, and it turns to liquid. So your honey never really goes bad. It may turn to sugar.
Where do you find the Beekeeper honey around here? For those of us who go to Publix and places.
Farmers Market, Jim Premise. Jim Premise sets up out there. Jay Williams. He's another beekeeper, local beekeeper. Several of them in this county that use no chemicals. Jay doesn't use chemicals. Jim, or as my knowledge, does not. Jim Premise does not. And he's a Vanderbilt professor, and and going back to what Rick was talking about earlier, the bee school. It's February 16th. It starts Wednesday, February 16th from 6 to 9. Thursday and Friday, 6 to 9, and then Saturday from 9 to about 2. It'll cost you $20. That covers the cost of a book you'll receive, and it is one of the best beekeeping schools in the state of Tennessee. It will teach you from knowing absolutely nothing about bees to being able to keep bees. And it's a very good course. It's out at Ellington Agriculture Center
in Nashville.
And we've got some information here. You need to call Jim and get on the list. Because last year we had like 154 people there at the school, and it's that good a school, and they come from all over Middle Tennessee to learn beekeeping.
Any other questions?
And we can talk hours.
Hey, I know some beekeepers paint their boxes. Those aren't painted.
That's because we're using this as a display so people can see the type of wood. Yeah, you're right. And when you get a box, you want to paint the outside.
Not the inside.
You want to paint the bottom lip or rim. And then you want to take and paint the top. Do not paint the inside of the hive. We had a beekeeper from New York City. He bought a package of and a set of hives from Trevor. He took and painted the inside of the hive. We told him to paint his hive. He painted the inside of the hive, plus he painted the frames. I mean, you know, never crossed our mind that he would do that. But it made us aware that if you haven't been exposed to it, then, you know, that could very well happen. So now we tell people, just paint the outside of the hive. Do not paint your frames.
And what happened after you painted it?
Well, the bees wouldn't stay. They left. Because they're very sensitive to smell. So if you paint your hive, go ahead and get them painted as early as you can. Let them air out because they're very sensitive to smell.
Bees are now being used in cancer research. A lot of people don't know that. They'll have a glass cylinder that they'll have the patient blow into. It has 2 different chambers in it. They'll put bees in there. The patient will blow into it. If they have cancer, the bees will move out away from it into the other chamber. Bees have, I think it's 127 different smell receptors. And then also the U.S. military, I think it is now, is using them to find, what is it, landmines?
Yeah.
And different things like that. So they're very sensitive. Another lady, she had a print shop that we worked with one time. And this is stuff you just learn over time, working with different people. She went into her print shop and had her frames put together and installed the wax foundation. She installed the wax foundation, put it in a box, and let them sit in the print shop overnight. The next day she went out and put the bees in. Well, what do you use a lot of in the print shop? Acetone. And that smell soaked into the wax. The bees would not work the wax. And so we got her some more wax and got it back in there, and the bees went right.
How odd.
So they're extremely sensitive to smell. And like what we were talking about earlier, do not eat a banana and go to your bee yard because they will set you afire because it smells like their alarm pheromone. And if you notice, these are bobby pins that holds this wax in. The books will tell you to take and run wire. The frames have 2 holes on each end, and they tell you cross wire. As long as you're using vertical wires and you use the mediums, you don't have to do that. A lot of the things like Trevor was talking about and Rick are designed for the commercial beekeeper. And that cross wiring is designed for the beekeeper, commercial beekeeper, where he travels 400 or 500 miles to the next crop that jostling up and down. And of course, when it came out, originally the roads weren't as good as what we have today. So you don't have to go to that. You can just use the bobby pins.
That's part of the fun of beekeeping, because when you go to get this started, you got to assemble all those things. So you learn those techniques and skills.
Yeah. Trevor does offer the boxes already put together. That's the nice thing. Now, the feeders are already put together. the bottom boards, landing boards, everything's put together. The only thing you can have to put together if you want to is the frames, but he will put them together for you. And something interesting to me is that these little girls will take whatever they do for a reason. And if you look in the bottom of this sail, on this wax imprintation, you will see there's a Y in the bottom of it. You flip it over, there's an upside down Y.
That's very subtle.
And you may have to look at it for a few minutes to really see it, but it's there. You always want the upside down Y facing the center of the hive. Well, why? That's the way they do it in nature. It's just like if you're right-handed and they put you on a machine designed for a left-handed person, it's going to slow you down. It's the same way with bees. If you notice that piece of foundation that was passed around a while ago, how smooth and straight that is, that was put in properly. They will draw smoother and straighter foundation. You go monkeying with it and put it in there wrong, and it'll be quite wavy.
He's talking about that black piece in the Ziploc bag, how smooth it is.
And so, once again, learning to work with the bees and not against them. Not getting them to conform to us, but us conform to what they want.
You were painting the box just for wood preservation, I'm assuming, right?
Right.
And to keep
What kind of paint is it?
Yeah, I've noticed white seems to be popular. Is that for
Heat.
anything other than, yeah?
And the nice thing, what we do also, is if you've ever been to Las Vegas or in California, you fly in, all the houses look the same. You know, you can easily get lost out there because it's row after row of houses look the same. Well, when you put your bees out, if you put out all white hives, well then you need to put some kind of identifying mark. Trevor would take and put numbers on the board here, landing board. Or you can take paint and paint stripes, some way for them to identify. When you get several hives, you know, 1 or 2 hives, no problem, because they know, well, when we fly out, this one has a post on this side, and this hive over here has a post on this side, or a rock, or whatever it is. So if you have multiple hives, then you need to put some kind of identifying mark on a, kind of like an address. And the bees won't drift as bad. And what I mean for drifting, in the spring, bees everybody's welcome because they're bringing in either water, pollen, or nectar. So if you don't belong here, that's okay. You're bringing something in. Now in the fall, when there's nothing blooming, you try to come in our hive.
World War IV.
Yeah, they're going to jump on you, you know.
That's when I started wearing my suit, my jacket.
So they become very defensive toward the fall. Early spring, they're not
Well, you end up with nothing. A bumblebee and 2 wasps would sort of come in trying to get to the honey, and they just jump on, grab them off, and run them off, and run them to the ground. They didn't take any guff at all. None.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're talking about paint, are we talking about enamel, satin,
Water-based, a good quality water-based.
Water-based.
Primer, or you can use, they've got primers already in outside exterior paint now, so you don't have to prime it. You can put it in one coat, and that takes care of it.
I used 2 coats of paint. I coat of primer, coat of paint, and it lasted well most of the time.
Mm-hmm. And something else we do on hives is that we highly recommend that you use this product. It's called White Lightning. You can get it at Lowe's or Home Depot, hardware store up here, Harpeth Materials. And it's a low volatile silicone. This is 40 years, lasts 40 years. And what you want to do is take all your little nail holes and your end grains, you put the silicone on it. We've got a little tool that we use to seal it, rub across it, and it seals it. It was in your back pocket.
Yeah.
You have to watch this guy. If you give him that pen, you'll never get it back. And you'd be surprised how much longer your equipment will last. We've got hives that are back in the 70s because we use silicone. And the nice thing about these joints, this type of joint is, it's very little surface space. Whereas you use a box joint or a finger joint, you've got all this area for it to suck water. And the reason why they went to box joints was, once again, commercial beekeepers throwing it up in the back of a truck and hitting. And it is a stronger joint in a sense of transporting the hives and being a commercial beekeeper. But most people are not going to become commercial beekeepers as far as pollinating.
One other thing, this actually happened. There was a gentleman in our county that he was having marital problems with his wife, and he decided one day that he was going to get the upper hand. So he went to the bank, drawed out $18,000, and this has been a long time ago. And so it's, you know, it's worth a whole lot more now than $18,000 was back then. But anyway, he decided, well, I'll get it. Got the money out. And his wife hated his bees. So he decided, well, I'll keep her away from it. I'll just put it in the beehive. Bees don't like anything foreign in their hive. Period. Next day, he goes out to his hive, looks at the front of the entrance, and there's green confetti outside. Chewed $18,000 up through it out in front of the hive. So, moral of that story is give your wife what she's supposed to get. She gets half in the state of Tennessee, so you might as well go ahead and have half. But no, they will absolutely. It's just like we have certain traps and things. This is one version for a hive beetle trap. If you notice afterwards, if you guys want to come up and look at some of this stuff, they're stapled down. The bees, little bitty bees, will take and push that right out the front of the hive. It's the most amazing thing you've ever seen. But anything that's foreign, any kind of paper or anything like that, they just won't stand for. It's got to go.
And the nice thing about the bee, yes, sir.
What's the target date to get started for people that's never done this before?
Ideally, last in March, 1st of April. April is really the ideal month. I think you got started in April, didn't you?
I did. I think I put them in April 12th and had the flood roll in 2 weeks later, just wipe out all the flowering stuff.
Oh.
They still did well. But yeah, it's about when I'm going to get my new one this year, I think. I got them getting a package.
One of the nice things about bees, they're extremely clean. They will take and coat the inside of this hive, every frame, every piece of woodwork in this hive with propolis. It's antibacterial and antifungal. And one of the sad things is that as beekeepers, and one of the problems as beekeepers or the bee breeders have done is bred this out of bees. Because once again, it's all about numbers, getting in the hive quick. Rick said it took him about 2 hours originally to go through a hive. A beekeeper, within 10 minutes, he can go through a hive. I mean, once you get to that level. And so they want to go through a hive real quick, and they don't want to have to worry about the propolis. Propolis is made from resins of different trees, and they glue everything up. If it's under 3/8 of an inch in a gap, they close it up with propolis. And propolis, like I said, they coat everything in it, and it creates a real good environment. Can you imagine have 60 to 80,000 bees and not have to worry about viruses? You put 60, 80,000 people, like down in the Astrodome, you've seen what a mess that was. And so they're very clean. And they will take and work their hearts out. The girls have one thing, is to get out there and get that nectar and then die. That's all they do. But they do it for the betterment of the survival of the species. And they're extremely hard workers. And if we can learn as beekeepers to work with them, give them what they need, when they need it, and by following your mentor, whoever that might be, it will help you become a better beekeeper.
And that's one thing too, for those of you who are thinking about getting into beekeeping, go to these different clubs that are mentioned. You go to Tennessee Beekeepers Association, Google that, and there's a list of local associations.
And they're really friendly.
From one end of the county to the other. I mean, one end of the state to the other. And 98% of the time, there's lots of older beekeepers there that are very experienced. They're very knowledgeable. They'll be more than willing to help you out and to answer any questions. That's one of the things John and I do a lot of. We work with a lot of different people, try to answer the questions and different things like that. You can come up here. My brochure's here. John's got his cards. If you decide to get into it, you bump into something, you give us a call, and we'll try to help talk you through it.
And that's on one of the pages I gave for links. It's there. And they both got nice informative websites. Trevor's is brand new. Actually, his is a new version.
Yeah, his is newer than, he's made changes. But anyway, on both of our websites, we both are organic beekeepers. We don't use anything in our hives that you can't eat yourself or use. On John's website and mine, there's an organic calendar that tells you what you should be doing to your bees each month.
Wish that was around last year. That's a nice thing, actually.
And finding candy recipe. What else is on there?
PDF file for organic treatments, alternative to chemical beekeeping.
Yeah. So there's a lot of information that's out there, but I strongly recommend when you read something on the internet. My grandfather had a saying: believe nothing that you hear and only half of what you see. So I'm not saying that there's not a lot of good information out there, but sometimes you have to be careful with what you get because some of it's kind of way out there on the limb. So that's the big thing is, like John said before, do your own research, use common sense. Beekeeping's made up of really three things, if you ask me: common sense, making good decisions, and knowing how to make up your losses. That's beekeeping in a nutshell, I think.
Any more questions? But if you do have questions, there's no stupid questions.
I asked plenty of them.
The only stupid ones they will not ask.
Yeah, if you don't ask it, you made a mistake. So always ask questions. Go to your clubs, and different clubs are geared different ways. Some clubs are more, unfortunately, in my opinion, they're geared toward chemical beekeeping because that's all they've ever known. That's all they've been taught. But until 1984, there was no chemicals in beehives. There wasn't no need for it. We didn't have the pest. The biggest worry we had was the wax moth. The wax moth is one of the few creatures that can digest wax. Human beings, we cannot digest. None of the mammals can digest wax. It passes right through us. But it contains a lot of goodies. It has the propolis and the pollen in it. If you're allergic to local ragweed and stuff like that, bees don't gather ragweed. It's an airborne pollen. But it floats over to the goldenrods, and the bees will gather the goldenrod nectar and the pollen, take it back to the hive. And so you, over a period of time, taking local honey, will build resistance to ragweed. And it's very effective. We've got people in Spring Hill that were really having a hard time with allergies, and they've gone no allergy shots, and they were getting some relief, but it just wasn't working for them, and they started taking local honey. And as a result, they don't have any problems today. But it's amazing what the bees will do for you. If you have trouble sleeping at night, as you get older, it becomes harder to sleep at night because your body starts slowing down the production of melatonin. But if you take, as long as your stomach is have quite a bit of food in it, you'll take 2 tablespoons of honey, you'll sleep like a baby. But if you don't have enough food in your stomach, keep you awake. But and during your sleep, it helps repair your body. It's amazing what that. Each year they find out a little bit more about honey and how beneficial it is. We've kind of got away from it over the years, but the pendulum swings both ways. And the organic movement is a big movement now. It's something to reckon with. And so each year it becomes more and more. So we have a podcast. You can go online, Google my name, and Google Honey, and it'll pull up some podcasts you can listen to. And, about 7 or 8 of them. But I encourage you to get out there and get you a set of bees, play with them, get comfortable. Because you'll be out there, you're all suited up, and all of a sudden you lose your grip, and the bees get in your face. It scares you to death. But don't get excited. They can't get to you. You're all suited up, so you're protected. That's the reason why I encourage you beekeepers, get your gloves, get your veil, and get you a bee jacket. And speaking of veils, that's very important. You do not want a veil that is made out of flexible nylon screen. And the reason for that is it wiggles. You're looking for bee eggs, and you're looking down in there, and it distorts. Trevor tell you that. He bought one. And
I don't have it anymore.
he doesn't have it. Walter T. Kelly makes a good folding screen veil. It's flat across the front so you can examine your frames. And a helmet, you want one that breathes. You don't want a plastic one. Spend a little extra dollars to get you one that's a woven fiber. It's a whole lot cooler. Just little things like that makes beekeeping fun. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about registering your hive. Are there any local ordinances for or against urban beekeeping?
It varies from city to city. So you'd have to get with your city administrator to find out. I do not think Williamson County has that. Because there's plenty of beekeepers in this county, in the city of Franklin.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Green Hills, I sold guys in Green Hills down in Nashville. It's got neighbors as far from here to the wall. And they keep them in their backyard. But always remember to do this with your neighbors. Always play the political card. Give them a jar, honey.
Yeah. Even if you have to go buy one. Hey, here's you some honey. I'm thinking about keeping bees. You know, and like I said, put them to where they're 5 or 6 feet away from an obstacle like a fence or a bush. And so they have to climb and get above, and they cruise about 10, 11 feet, somewhere thereabouts. And they'll never have any trouble.
And one of the other things is too, a lot of people, because of Africanized bees and everything, they've got a bad image of bees when it comes down to it. And legitimately they're worried about their kids or whatever the case may be. And that's one reason why you don't want to keep nasty bees. You want to find out, like John said, why are they being that way? Start investigating it. Pick somebody else's brain. What could be causing it? This is what I'm seeing. You know, those type of things. And then in turn, if you've got good bees, educate your neighbors. As you learn, educate them. As far as that goes. In other words, most of the time, it amazes a lot of people, and I run all John stock now for this simple reason. If you've got a hive body that's sitting on there, and Rick will tell you, I've done it with his bees. I can walk right up there, put my hand down in front of them like that, and most of the time they'll crawl right up on my hand.
Tell them when you were learning from John. Tell them what you did. He made you do first time.
I come out to the hive I was going to install my first package of bees. This is the first time I ever messed with them, and of course I come out suited up, bulletproof. You know? I don't know, what was it? March, April, somewhere around there. But I got my suit and my gloves. John says, "You don't need all that stuff." He says, "Take all that off." And so the first time I went out there, I'm not recommending this myself because you need
this is what he made him do.
And take a package. We took both packages, started 2 hives, shook the bees out of the crate into the hive, never got stung once. I wore like the yellow gloves that my wife wears, dishwashing gloves for a while. Those will work. Bees can sting through. It's not like like a lamb leather glove or whatever you want to say, but they do provide some protection. But as you get comfortable, you'll find out real quick, gloves are cumbersome, aggravating things, and you'll eventually ship once you get used to working your bees. Most people do anyway. But you'll find too that most women are better beekeepers than men are, because they seem to be a little more gentle.
And when you set your, like Rick was saying, when you set your box down, you want to rock it back and forth, back and forth. And what you're doing, you're letting them feel you. And because if you go in there and drop it down on top, you
Go
just
40
mash.
bees, 60 bees, sometimes 150.
You know? And so they'll remember, hey, that guy's back again. Let's get him. So they remember. They remember smells. They know what you smell like. I can go into the bees and you know, they know who I am. And I feel like they do. But whether they do or not, I don't know. But because bees only have a 3-day memory. You were talking about moving your bees. Did you know you can go in one evening right at dark, put screen across the front of your hive, keep them screened up till the evening of the 4th day, move them from right here to right there, and they'll never come back to here because they're 3-day memory?
If you do it before then, they'll go back to where the box used to be.
Yeah, even though there's no box there, they'll go back to where the box was.
If you don't do what he's talking about, you were to rotate that hive, the entrance is pointed this way and point it this way, all the bees will be right here.
Trying to get in there.
Trying to get in on the back side of the hive. They can't figure that out.
They're fascinating little creatures, and
They're
never,
just so smart in other ways.
yeah, never underestimate them. And everybody thinks the queen runs the show. That's not true. The queen lays the eggs. She's the mother of all the bees in the colony. It's a consensus of the bees. If there's not enough nectar coming in for her to continue laying, they will confine her down, keep her from laying those eggs. Because what good does it do for her to lay 2,000 eggs a day and we don't have enough nectar coming in for only 300 eggs a day? So they control her. And like Rick was saying, swarms, they'll go out and scout areas. They'll send out scouts looking for areas to expand. But by proper management, you can keep your colonies from swarming. And usually they will swarm the 2nd year. And you can go to our calendar and it will tell you how to keep that from occurring. It's very simple. It's once again working with the bees, giving them what they need at the proper time. Yes, sir?
Exactly what is a swarm?
A swarm, okay, bees propagate themselves by expansion through swarms. A swarm is a group of bees with most of the time with the original queen that this colony was started out. And the reason for that is when they leave and they swarm, usually swarm season starts mid-April, May, through their area. And they go out and find a cavity somewhere they want to set up shop. They come back to the hive, talk it over with the other bees. They go out and look at it, get a consensus. This is a good place. Then that old queen will come out with them, and then they will go to this new swarm or this new colony.
Usually because of a lack of space.
Yeah, because it's overcrowded.
Yeah, not enough room.
And so that's the way they propagate their species.
So they would leave your hive empty?
No, they only take about a third, sometimes 2/3 of the bees, and they leave a queen cell, a queen that has not hatched out in this colony. And so they will take the old queen, and the reason for that is the minute they find this new cavity, those bees start really working real hard, drawing out wax, and that queen immediately starts laying. Whereas this queen here, it's going to be 28 days before she starts laying. And one of the nice things of what they will do is that the frames are all drawn out in the brood chamber, and they will backfill that brood chamber where the queen used to lay full of nectar. Why would they do that? Well, what happens is the bees that are left there, they now have stores without getting into the honey for the winter stores. So they drink the nectar, clean out the cells, and by that time the new queen hatches out. She takes her mating flight, usually about 2 of them. She mates hopefully with 20 to 30 drones, comes back, and then in a few days she'll start laying eggs. And so those bees have got that area that was once full of nectar empty now, and gives them a place to lay. They were able to sustain themselves without getting into the winter stores of honey. So it's really a fascinating way that they manage the colony.
Simply put, what a swarm is reproduction at the colony level. Instead of laying a bee egg, reproduction at the colony level.
It's fascinating.
And for those of you who want to see a bee egg, I've got it on my computer screen over there, but on the way afterwards I can show you something if you like, which I want to show you on the big screen. But I blew it, sorry.
Technology.
Yeah.
Put it on your website.
And the nice thing about beekeeping, you can start out small. You don't have to have a lot of expensive equipment. It does take a few dollars to get started. I do not recommend top bar hives unless you go with a wide modified top bar hive. Because in the state of Tennessee, because of the hive beetles, there's no way to really manage the hive beetles in a top bar hive. We've had experienced beekeepers that would have 35, 40 of these top bar hives, and they would get hive beetles. And there's not really a good, effective way to treat for hive beetles in the top bar hive. The bees cannot corral them. Bees will actually take and coat them in propolis. We'll keep them in a corner, and then we'll seal them over.
It's a good fate.
Yeah. And so they will contain, because they figured out, they can take I've seen this, they will take a beetle, a little bee will take it, fly it out, and drop it, and beat the bee back. So it's best to work with the bees, and there's not a lot of natural ways of doing that.
Does that answer all everybody's questions?
So back over the finances once more. $81 is your bees itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then your hive in this configuration is?
You can get it as low as probably, if you want to put your frames together yourself and things like that, you cut your cost, it can be as low as probably $130, $140 range, $150, say. And then on up to where if you don't want to do anything, it could be a couple of $100.
It just depends on you. Yes, sir.
Once you place your order for the hive, how long will it take before delivery or before you're able to?
Well, there's usually what you call shipping dates or shaking dates, and those are the dates about 17 days apart that we'll shake bees, and then you would just have to order your bees and availability of that date. The sooner you get your orders in, the sooner you can get your bees. If you wait, it can be toward the end of May because, slots fill up.
What about the hive? If your bees are on the way now?
Well, no, the bees wouldn't be on the way right now. It's too early.
No, but how far ahead do you have to order your hive?
Well, you need to get your hive far enough in advance so that you can paint it and have your frames put together, or if I put the frames together, then your wax installed in them and ready to go, so that when John brings your bees, you've got a place to put them and you're not going, uh-oh, I don't have a place to put my bees.
He has the wood stuff in stock.
Yeah, I usually have enough of that where you can come and get it, and it's only, about 40 minutes from here?
Yeah.
You need a week or two to get it painted and to figure out how to put the foundation in and stuff like that, which is fun to do. It's easy.
And that was part of my question. If I ordered the hive tomorrow, how long would it take you to build it, or how long would it take me to possession of it?
He's got it ready right now.
You can come get it.
In stock.
Yeah. And one of the best and cheapest books out there to learn about beekeeping, the basics, is put out by Walter T. Kelly. It's How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey. And it's a very old book, but it's been updated, and it really teaches you the basics to beekeeping. If you're not able to go to the Nashville Area Beekeepers Association Bee School, it's probably one of the best ones out there because it's very simple. It was written by a beekeeper who wanted you to keep bees, and when he told you something, that's the way it was. A lot of books today are written by beekeepers, sort of beekeepers, and they will use about 10 pages to describe one paragraph worth of information. And that book, How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey, doesn't do it that way. It's strictly to the point. It tells you exactly what to do and when to do it. It's a very good book.
Where do the bees come from when you order them?
We've got yards in Georgia, and we do have a yard down in Florida now because we were scared of the cold weather. It's been unusually cold. Yeah. And we're down there at Fort Drum, which is off the turnpike, right above the big lake. What is that?
Okeechobee.
Lake Okeechobee. Yes, sir.
On painting the hives, can you use like a vet stain or something if you want to, like leave or clear, if you want to leave a wood color?
Yeah, you could.
I mean, is that, we won't do anything, we're just talking about the smell, and I know that stuff, that waterproof stuff smells pretty strong. I just wondered if you could use that instead of just paint.
You would just have to let it sun much longer, let it air dry. There is some products out there that you can coat your hive with that will preserve it. You can go online, natural wood treatment, wood preservative, and I think they're out of Canada. And you can coat your hive with it, and it doesn't outgas.
Okay, I like the color of that wood. I was just wondering,
yeah,
you know, if you could do that.
I've had customers do that before.
We have an environmental store in Nashville that sells all manner of environmental paints, stains, etc.
Really?
So, N Habit.
N
12. Yes, N and then Habit is N in parentheses and then Habit. It's on 12th Avenue South.
Okay. So it's an amazing hobby. You'll never get tired of it. And the thing about it, when you pull your first frame up and you watch, you can become mesmerized by these bees. It's just truly amazing. And they totally ignore you. You pick up that frame, they could care less. But when you pick that frame up, don't stand over here showing your friends, because you could be talking and that queen could be on that frame, and they will cover her if it's cool to keep her warm. And in reality, they can pull her off and fall to the ground, and next thing you know, you just stepped on the queen. So always hold over your hive. And they won't teach you this in any of the books. You can read all the books in the world. They won't teach you this. But pull your frames up, look at them over the hive. And always take your hive and keep your frames pushed together tight. Tight as you can. See how tight these are? There's no gaps. Because if you do this, see that gap right there? What they will do, remember, if it's over under 3/8, they will purplize it. And so that changes the bee space up through here, so they draw the foundation out a little bit more. And so as a result, you can be pulling up a frame and damage it. So always keep your frames pushed together, and when you go to work your colonies, take your hive tool, push everything to one side. So now look at that space I have here. Quite a bit of space. So I take this frame, pull it over like that, and then come up and out of the hive. By doing that, I'm not going to roll the queen. I will take this frame and set it to the outside of the hive. There's tools, hangers that will attach to the hive, and Trevor will show you what a hive tool looks like. And then I take the next frame slide it over, pull it up, look at it, but I set it back into the hive, right against this wall. So I only have one frame out at a time, actually out of the hive. I pull this one over and up, look at it, slide it back down, and I push it over against this frame. And the reason for that is queens have a tendency to get away from the light. So she may be on this frame, she could crawl around the end of it, and if I have them spread apart and I push them together later on, I can mash her and you kill your queen.
$25 stuff.
Yeah, that's going to cost you $25.
And what are you looking for? You just
All right,
said-
I'm looking at the progression of the bees, see how well the brood chamber is developing. I'm looking to make sure her egg pattern, her laying pattern. He's got some. You have it on that disc on your computer.
I do.
He's got a real nice egg pattern or a brood pattern.
I'll show that afterwards.
And so that's what you're looking for. You don't have to see the queen every time you go in the hive, because if you see the eggs only last for 3 days, and then they change.
They become a larva.
They become larvae. All right. And the neat thing about these bees, any fertilized egg in the first 3 days of their lives can become a queen. So any of these girls in a colony can become queens. It's what they're fed, and their cell is changed. Earlier, Trevor was showing you the frames where the cells are put in at 4 to 5 degree angle. All of those cells are worker cells, or drone cells, which are males. Now the queen cell will hang vertical on a frame. Could be in the middle, could be on the bottom, depends on the time of year, whether it's supersedure or swarm cell or what have you. And they will hang. And as a result, these bees will take and feed that queen royal jelly. Nothing but royal jelly.
She's special.
It's special. Now all bees get it the first 3 days of their life, but the queen is the one who gets it all of her life. And as a result, by that cell hanging vertical, they know this is a special girl. We got to take care of her. And she develops into a queen. It's really amazing. And it's fascinating the way that the hive operates.
Always only one queen per hive?
One queen per hive. You ever been married and have 2 wives at one time? That doesn't work. So that's the same way with the hive. No, seriously, about 10% of the time, you can have a mother-daughter. I've only had it once, and I got in there, and I didn't think the queen was doing what I thought she should be doing, so I went in there, I found her, I killed her, and then so I went on through the hive, and I said, oh, you dummy, there's the other queen. There was a mother-daughter. And that's the only time I've ever seen that. And as far as American foul brood, thank goodness I've never seen American foul brood, and I've had bees ever since I was big enough to walk with my daddy and granddaddy. I've never seen them. I hope I don't. So, all righty.
Sorry, thank you all very much.
Thanks for the space. Anybody want to see that?
Hi, my name is Iris Howe. And I'm Brooke Anderson. And we're from Mr. Phillips' homeroom. We're here to tell you about the book, The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, by Kate DeCamelo. How would you feel if you were loved so many times, yet always neglected after? Well, that's how Edward Tulane had China Rabbit felt. Once separated from his beloved owner, he took a miraculous journey from the high seas to a garbage dump, to the home of a hobo, to the home of a sickly girl. And on this journey, Edward learned to love forget, and to love again. Yet, always after, he found hope. Hope that he could find love again. Hope you enjoyed our book review. Go to your local library and check it out.
Somebody took it away from me in the blink of an eye. In less than a month, this woman destroyed what I had worked for 15 years.
I mean, your credit score is basically all you have.
I was mugged, they got my information.
It can really negatively affect your life.
Then they went off with the information and basically became me.
I feel it's a loss of control that someone's out there pretending to be you and doing things in your name that can come back to haunt you.
Somebody was using my name and all my personal data.
They'd done it all. I just didn't even know where to start. They had a long record.
It's a terrible feeling.
Identity theft. It happens when your personal information is stolen and used without your knowledge. It's a serious crime that can cost you time and money, ruin your credit, and destroy your good name.
When I was a victim of identity theft, my mail had been stolen.
I was shopping at a grocery store and someone took my wallet.
I think I made a purchase and they stole all my debit card information.
My briefcase had been tampered with, and when I looked in it, I saw that my passport and my driver's license, which I had in there, had been taken.
Identity theft happens when someone takes information about you and then uses it to commit fraud.
Identity theft is very serious.
We know that identity fraud in its various forms has affected 10 million people in any given year. And what that means in dollars is that it's a loss to businesses of about $50 billion. On top of that, victims of identity theft have spent $5 billion trying to undo this harm.
Everyone needs to be conscious that identity theft is real.
When you get news that your identity has been potentially stolen, it's sort of this open-ended problem that has occurred, and you don't know what's going to come of it.
No one's immune, which isn't to say that we're powerless. There's a lot we can do to deter, detect, and defend ourselves.
My identity was stolen when I was mugged. It is pretty traumatic, especially how it happened to me. They got my information and it happened. Then they went off with the information and basically became me when they went to charging items in stores.
Identity thieves can only take advantage of you if you give them information or if they obtain information about you. So what you want to do is take steps to make it less likely that your information falls into the wrong hands. There are many ways that you can do that. And the first is to stop and look in your wallet. What are you carrying around? And if you lose your wallet, are you giving somebody else an opportunity to commit identity theft? So avoid carrying around any identification that has your social security number on it in your wallet, because that can be used very easily and efficiently by identity thieves.
They could have your name, they could have your birth date, but if they don't have your social security number, they're not going to get very far. But all they really need is a social security number, and they can misspell your name and still get credit.
The only place that social security card number should be is in your head and protected somewhere at home where you keep your other valuables.
And if someone asks you to provide a social security number, ask them why they need it, how they're going to keep it, how they're going to safeguard it, because you don't want that number to fall into the wrong hands.
I had an incident that I thought was a valid reason to give out information until they asked for my social security number. I went as far as the first 3 digits. I thought, gee, they don't need that. And then I hung up.
This is a crime. You have to think when you're at home, protect your identity. Don't leave around your personal documents, your date of birth. Somebody could come into your home and have immediate access to that information.
You also have to be careful about your trash. Now, a lot of people routinely receive things in the mail, maybe bank statements, credit card statements, or health insurance forms, and if they don't need them, they just throw them away in the trash. They shouldn't do that. Everyone should invest in a shredder. So before they dispose of these critical documents, you shred them. Identity thieves, don't worry about getting their hands dirty. They will go through your trash to retrieve these documents. They go where the information is. They'll steal your mail, they will steal your trash, they'll steal your wallet, and that's how they get information about you.
Deter identity theft. Protect your social security number. Shred financial documents and paperwork with any personal information before you throw them out. Never give out personal information on the phone or internet unless you know who you are dealing with.
My name is Nicole M. Robinson. The woman who stole my identity, her name is Nicole A. Robinson. She stole my information from the pharmaceutical company that she works for. After this happened, it devastated my financial life. I ordered my credit reports, and I received a credit report in the mail that was 54 pages long. It had over 170 accounts. 140 of them were in collections. It had 42 different names and 65 different addresses on it. Not only was somebody else reaping the benefits of my good credit, I could no longer have access to my own good credit. And I cried. I cried every day for 3 months.
On top of the financial and the time that people spend in resolving these issues, it's an emotional burden on victims.
My life before the identity theft case was wonderful. In less than a month, this woman destroyed what I had worked for 15 years. She got my life.
If an identity thief uses, for example, your social security number and applies for new credit in your name, as opposed to raiding an existing account, there may be no way for you to know about it unless you've checked your credit report and you see that a new account that you didn't even know about has been opened in your name. That's why it's very important to monitor your credit report regularly.
Detect identity theft. Check your credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Federal law gives you the right to a free credit report every year from the 3 national consumer reporting companies. Review your financial accounts regularly. Look for charges you did not make.
When someone realizes that they're a victim of identity theft, it's like getting a kick in the gut. You know, you feel paralyzed for a moment, but it's really essential for victims to move quickly and deliberately in starting to resolve the problems that arise from identity theft.
I did what everybody knows to do, and that's call your credit card companies and cancel your credit cards. However, that's not enough. There was one major bit of information I did not have, and that was to call the 3 major credit bureaus. And I did not do that, and what happened was this person then went back. She was able to reopen the credit cards that I canceled. She was also able to open new credit cards in my name.
If you find you've become a victim of identity theft, the first thing you need to do is contact one of the 3 major credit reporting agencies and have them put a fraud alert on your file.
You got to take it seriously. You even suspect it, you got to put fraud alerts on. You got to take the steps to protect yourself, and you got to inform yourself about what to do so that when it does happen to you, you can do it quickly because time is critical.
You next want to contact each of the creditors or other institutions where your information has been misused. Then you follow up in writing and dispute these accounts and get a letter from them resolving these disputed fraudulent accounts.
The FTC has an affidavit, which in my case I used, to write out your explanation of what happened that you can then use to submit to creditors trying to collect on fraudulent accounts. When you're trying to tell them, look, my identity was stolen, it helps prove it to them.
You next want to contact your local police department, report the crime, and get a copy of the police report.
You should contact the police immediately because otherwise you have no proof that there was a crime.
It's very important that you report it to the police because there are certain agencies that you need or we recommend that you contact, and they're probably going to refer you back to the police department to see if you have a police report or not.
And finally, you need to contact the Federal Trade Commission online at ftc.gov/ID theft or call us toll-free at 877-ID theft to report this to us.
Defend against identity theft. Call the 3 credit reporting companies and place a fraud alert on your credit report. Then ask for the free credit report you're entitled to. Close any accounts that you suspect have been tampered with or opened fraudulently. Start by calling the security or fraud department of each company, follow up in writing, and include copies of supporting documents. File a police report. Contact the FTC. Your information also helps law enforcement officials across the country to track down and stop ID thieves.
Let's treat our personal information as we would our cash. Let's safeguard it, whether we're at home, whether it's in our purse or our wallet, or at our office.
Your personal information is cash, and in the wrong hands, it can destroy your life.
The FTC plays a central role in helping victims avoid and recover from identity theft. So we have developed substantial consumer education material that's available on our website at ftc.gov/ID theft.
Identity theft is serious, but even if your identity has been stolen and there has been, fraudulent accounts open to your name, you can defend yourself and get those resolved in your favor.
There are times when you just do not want to finish and you just want to say, you know, forget it, I can't do this anymore. But you have to find that way inside of you to just keep going, because this is something that if you don't clear, it definitely affects the rest of your life.
What I want is for us to create a culture of security for our personal information so that this crime in the future will be diminished greatly.